Live from Melbourne, this is 7's Afternoon News with Mike Amor.
Good afternoon. First to breaking news, and Australia's energy market operator has taken direct control of the electricity market. It's the first time such a declaration has been made in more than 2 decades. Let's go straight to Emma O'Sullivan, who's following these developments today. And Em, there have been major concerns about power shortfalls here in Victoria tonight, but we're being told there's no need to worry yet.
Mike, that's correct. Victorians don't need to turn off the heating thanks to this extraordinary step by the market operator to ensure there is a reliable supply. It's the first time the wholesale market has been suspended nationally since it was set up in 1998. It's come about because of concerned generators across the eastern states weren't releasing enough power. Price caps were placed on electricity prices earlier this week. That led to some generators deciding it wasn't worth their while to bid supply onto the wholesale market because they wouldn't make enough money. Now trading of power is suspended. The operator will direct where supply goes.
So our market operator, which is the Australian Energy Market Operator, is working round the clock with generators to make sure we do have enough and we keep the lights on.
So the decision will be reviewed daily. It could create more uncertainty over prices later in winter, with question marks over how long the market will be managed in this way. Mike?
Em, thank you. And the CEO of the Australian Energy Market Operator is about to hold a press conference, and we'll bring you to that soon. Millions of Australians will be getting a pay rise. The Fair Work Commission agreed to lift the minimum wage by $40 a week, or 5.2%. The decision was made to ensure workers on the lowest incomes can keep up with the rising cost of living. It's just above the rate of inflation. Let's go straight to political reporter Jennifer Beshwati to take us through the numbers.
Well, some good news for workers today. The national minimum wage will soon increase by $40 a week, or just over $1 an hour. This takes the minimum wage to $21.38 per hour, or $812.60 per week. It's an increase of 5.2%, which is above headline inflation. It means about 180,000 workers on the minimum wage will get that full increase. A further 2.5 million workers on award wages will also get a pay rise, many coming into effect from July 1. But for people in hospitality, tourism and aviation, it won't start until October. The unions are pleased with the decision. They had asked for 5.5%, but say it's a fair and reasonable increase and will help struggling individuals keep up with the rising cost of living. Business groups disagree. They believe the increase is too high and many business owners won't be able to afford paying staff.
Extra $40 a week is going to make a significant difference. Especially if you consider the basics, because if you're on the absolute minimum, all of your wage is spent on the basics, going to mean that people will actually be able to buy the food they need for their families.
That cost will be an extra $7.9 billion hitting the bottom line of affected businesses as a result of this decision. That will add to inflationary pressures. They are going to have to look at passing on those costs to consumers.
This was the bedrock of the Labor election campaign. They argued that wages should not go backwards to keep up with inflation. One of the government's first acts since coming to power was to write to the Fair Work Commission to increase wages. Speaking in Gladstone today after a cabinet meeting, the Prime Minister welcomed the decision, saying hard-working, low-income earners will now have some extra cash in their pockets.
It makes a difference to people who are struggling with the cost of living. The truth is that many of those people who are on the minimum wage are the heroes who saw us through the pandemic. These workers deserve more than our thanks. They deserve a pay rise, and today they've got it.
People will be seeing in their bank accounts what the change of government means. People will be seeing in their bank accounts a wage increase that never would have happened back when we had a government committed and determined to keep wages deliberately low.
Politically, this is a big win for Anthony Albanese, who can now say that he's delivered on his election promise.
And despite today's minimum wage boost, the country's top banker is warning we need to be prepared for more tough times ahead. Chris Reason is following the developments, and Chris, the Reserve Bank Governor predicts inflation could soar to levels not seen in 32 years.
Good afternoon, that's right. It's rare that we see the Reserve Bank Governor make any public statements at all unless there is extreme significance, and they certainly were that. Predictions of a 7% inflation rate and also threats of spiking interest rate hikes to bring the economy back under control, with the costs of living now soaring on many levels, including power and petrol, groceries and gas. We've seen the inflation rate hit 5.1% in the March quarter, but the prediction was that that number would surge. Dr. Lowe saying that it would reach 7% by the end of the year, pushed along by COVID supply issues, the Ukraine war, and now today's minimum wage increase also adding to inflation pressures as well. Of course, interest rate rises are the key tool for the RBA to try and cool the economy. We've already seen them raise rates twice in the past two meetings, lifting the official rate from its pandemic low of 0.1% up to 0.85%. Those hikes quickly passed on by the retail banks. But Dr. Lowe said in an overnight ABC interview he needed to, quote, do what was necessary to bring that inflation number back down.
Inflation's high. It's too high. At the moment it's 5%, and by the end of the year I expect inflation to get to 7%. That's a very high number, and we need to be able to chart a course back to 2 to 3% inflation. It's unclear at the moment how far interest rates will need to go up to get that. I think it's reasonable that interest rates the cash rate gets to 2.5% at some point.
Now, Dr. Lowe said he realised the impact the rate hikes would have on mortgage holders, but also noted that many Australians relying on savings would welcome an interest rate increase. His prediction was that the bank's measures, tied in with global factors, would start to see inflation numbers come back down off a peak between January and March next year. Back to you.
A woman is set to plead guilty over a Point Cook fire that killed a young couple and their baby. Emergency crews found the three bodies after being called to the house fire in December 2020. A court was today told a deal's been struck between prosecutors and defence for Jenny Hayes to plead guilty to arson causing death. She was originally charged with murder. Jenny Hayes will be sentenced later this year. St Kilda legend Nicky Winmar has been inducted into the AFL Hall of Fame. He's renowned for his mercurial play and high marking, but is best known for this response to racial taunts from fans, a gesture which changed the game forever. Also honoured last night was Kangaroos legend Brent Harvey, who spoke to Nick McCallum.
With me is AFL Games record holder and now member of the AFL Hall of Fame, Brent Boomer Harvey. Congratulations. What did it actually mean to you, Boomer, last night?
First of all, thank you. It was a huge night. It was fantastic.
Brent Harvey.
To be in the room with so many legends of our game was super important. You look to your right and there's Jonathan Brown, Simon Black. You look to your left and there's the older players from different eras, Greg Williams, Stephen Kernahan, all these legends of our game. You sit there and you've got to pinch yourself because I certainly didn't think I'd be sitting in that room.
And when you first went down to North as a 17-year-old, first day you're on the scales, and what were you told?
I was one of the boys, had a look and they seen 64 kilos and they said to me, Flemington's 10 k's that way, buddy. Obviously alluding to being a small type of person, similar to a jockey. 432 games. Why do you think you played for so long?
Number 29, Brent Harvey.
I was lucky enough to win a premiership at 21 in my 5th year of AFL football, and I wanted to experience that again with a bunch of different guys. So that was probably the driving factor in the end. And that's what it always comes back to. If you love what you do, it's pretty easy. And I loved what I did for a long time.
You're branching out into another sport, August the 3rd, it's the footy fight night. How do you go as a boxer?
When you play footy for so long, you're always going to be a competitor, and that's certainly what I am. This is just a different variety. It's a huge fitness base. It's completely different to training for AFL footy. So I think even that part of it, the 6 or 7 weeks I've got ahead of me, to train and get super fit for a fight, is something that I'm looking forward to. And who knows? I don't think I'll have a boxing career, but I'll have a lot of fun.
Congratulations once again, Brent Boomer Harvey, now a member of the AFL Hall of Fame.
Still looking pretty fit too, isn't he? Masks could soon be scrapped in airport. Details ahead. Also, major changes to the housing market. Who has the upper hand? And Instagram gives parents more power. We'll chat to an expert. Those stories and plenty more are back in just a minute. There's a major shake-up to the nation's COVID rules. Travellers may no longer need to wear masks in airports. Let's go straight to Sarah Jones at Tullamarine this afternoon. Sarah, the rules could be changed by the end of the week.
Yes, Mike, masks may no longer be needed inside the airport, but that ultimately falls on Health Minister Martin Foley. The recommendation has been scrapped by the Australian Health Protection Principal Committee. In a statement, the federal government said the committee no longer considers the mandate in terminals proportionate because of the current relaxed mask wearing rules in all states and territories. But it will be up to each state and territory to put these new measures in place, with Minister Foley yet to tick off on it. New South Wales, WA and Canberra already has. Melbourne Airport has been calling for this since March, and of course masks are still recommended where physical distancing is not possible inside the airport, and they're still required on planes. That's despite Qantas declaring it will allow passengers to travel on some international flights. Let's take a listen to what passengers have to say.
Oh, that is fantastic. So good. I mean, obviously keeping coronavirus at bay is a good thing, but the mask is getting irritating by now.
I think it's too risky because COVID is not away now, but yeah, I think we better use mask.
The updated recommendations will come into place at midnight on Friday. Mike.
Sarah, thank you. Social media giant Instagram is set to make a sweeping change, giving parents more control over their child's use of the app. For more now, let's go live to Safe on Social's CEO, Kira Pendergast. Kira, great to see you. Talk us through what these changes are.
So the changes are in the parental control section. So Instagram is introducing a way that parents can control the amount of time their child spends on Instagram. They can monitor their followers and even some of the inappropriate content that might show up.
Kira, so often our children are smarter on these apps than we are. Do these measures go far enough to protect children and teenagers who are using the app?
Well, look, it's a step in the right direction. It's certainly not a fix-all. Like that could have happened when the app was first developed. They could have built in safety that made it that you had to opt out of privacy settings instead of opt in. There is an enormous amount of inappropriate content that still circulates all around Instagram all the time. Personally, I see at least 40% of primary school age children using Instagram. Parents don't know what their kids are actually getting into here. So there needs to be a whole lot more done, I think, than just throwing another parental control at it. There needs to be lots of more ongoing education.
My son's phone, I think, is medically attached to his body. A lot of kids don't want to hand over their phones to we parents. What's your advice for those parents who can try to manage these situations?
Yeah, look, manage it as young as possible. Put some healthy boundaries in place. Make sure that they never have their phones in their bedroom, for example, that they know that it's completely fine to speak up to you about absolutely anything, even if they think they've done something wrong, because a lot of kids will get convinced to send a photo of themselves or something like that to somebody, and then it might be used against them. And they need to know that they're not going to get in a whole huge amount of trouble if they have sent a photo to someone and then someone's using that against them. We want them to speak up when things go wrong. That is the most important thing you can get through to a child as a parent. As long as they keep speaking up, they're going to be safe. It's when they go quiet and try and hide things that it can get all out of control. So putting those healthy boundaries in place about speaking up when things go wrong, managing their time on their devices as much as you can, but making sure it's out of the bedroom at night. Like I'm regularly told by kids that I teach that they're checking messages at 10, 11, 12, 1 o'clock in the morning because they sleep with their phone beside their bed. That is really unhealthy. Those sorts of things need to change.
Gee, our parents had it easy, didn't they? Kira, thank you very much for your time.
You're welcome.
Melbourne's real estate sector is now officially a buyer's market. Vendors had the upper hand last year due to low stock levels and high demand, but now buyers are in the box seat with more houses on the market and fewer sales.
It's taking on average about 29 days for the typical Melbourne property to sell, and vendors are discounting the prices by a larger amount as buyers negotiate more.
Auction clearance rates have also fallen. Sport is coming up after the break and we'll tell you why Melbourne's season just got worse. Also, the Aussie sprint sensation that takes down a world-class field at Royal Ascot. And later, major retailers are under fire for using facial recognition technology. More news, sport and the latest weather is just ahead. Live from Melbourne, you're watching 7's Afternoon News. 12 degrees in the city right now. Jane Bunn will be here with the forecast later in the hour. Time for a check of sport and a blow for the Melbourne Demons. Scans have shown Max Gawn has been struck down with the dreaded syndesmosis injury. The captain has avoided the need to have surgery but will still be out for at least the next 4 games. Gawn will need to remain in a moon boot before beginning his rehab. Tomorrow night, it's the Blues and Tigers. Michael Voss revealing mid-season draftee Sam Durden will make his debut.
The first day he got in, he sat in front of the computer for 3.5 hours trying to learn what our style was. But in the end, I just want him to go out there and back himself in. He's been exposed to this level before. He knows what it's about.
Richmond coach Damien Hardwick confirmed superstar Dusty Martin is highly unlikely to play. He hasn't trained all week, battling the flu. The AFL is still weighing up a penalty for Bulldogs star Bailey Smith. Coach Luke Beveridge confident his star won't lose his touch when he returns from any punishment handed down.
I've got no doubt that by the time that Bailey's available to play, whatever happens from this current adjudication, that he'll be fit and ready to go. I've got no concerns about that at all.
Beveridge says he's yet to speak to Smith after he admitted to the use of an illicit substance. He's turning 36 in a matter of months, but David Warner's still as lively as ever.
Oh, that's unbelievable! What a catch that is by David Warner!
Ashton Agar couldn't believe his eyes. Pat Cummins went wicketless on his return from a hip injury in the one-day series opener against Sri Lanka. Chasing a rain-reduced total of 282, Glenn Maxwell kept his cool after a mini batting collapse, hammering an unbeaten 80 off 51 balls to get Australia home by 2 wickets. Cam Smith's confident he can break his major drought at this week's US Open at Brookline in Massachusetts. The Australian world number 6 says he's getting much more support from tour crowds after his win at the Players' Championship in March.
I think there's a little bit of a different vibe on the golf course as well towards me. I think there's maybe a few more people rooting for me, which is nice.
The US Open starts tomorrow night. Chris Waller's nature strip has enhanced his standing as the world's best sprinter. With royalty watching at Royal Ascot, James McDonald piloted the Everest winner to victory in the Group 1 King's Stand Stakes. But unfortunately, the caller botched his name.
Nature Stripe leading to Acklam Express in second place. Twilight Calls coming home in third position. But it is the great Australian sprinter, Nature Stripe and James McDonald. And look how far they've won by.
It's Nature Strip, by the way. It's the first Aussie winner at Royal Ascot since Black Caviar in 2012. Coming up, the latest on the East Coast's power crisis. Also, a major pay rise is on the way for millions of Australians. Plus, we'll speak to Darren Hinch about his plan to get into state parliament and why the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge are moving. Our top stories are coming up after this quick break.
Live from Melbourne, this is 7's Afternoon News with Mike Amor.
Welcome back. More on our breaking news. Australia's energy market operator has suspended the electricity spot market this afternoon. It gives them complete control of directing energy supplies to power grids. Chief Executive Daniel Westerman spoke a short time ago.
Today, AEMO has suspended the national electricity market. This decision was made because it was impossible to operate the system under current conditions while ensuring reliable, secure supply of electricity to Australian homes and businesses. By suspending the market, we're creating a simple process where AEMO has true visibility of which generators are available and when, in advance rather than relying on last-minute interventions. That visibility will help us to manage the system in real time, as well as to understand the balance of supply and demand in the periods ahead. Despite this, conditions remain tight in the coming days, in particular in New South Wales, where we would urge consumers to conserve energy where it is safe to do so. The suspension of the market is a temporary measure and will be reviewed daily. We'll return the market to its normal state once AEMO is confident that we can operate the market again and not see generators withdraw their availability. Practically, this means we're creating one single place where generators can put their availability, be dispatched in a methodical way, and have a simple, clear process for them to recover their costs.
Australia's lowest paid workers will get an extra $40 a week in their pay packets. The Fair Work Commission has approved a rise of 5.2%. That's just above the rate of inflation.
It makes a difference to people who are struggling with the cost of living.
The Commission expects changes to take effect from the first pay period after July 1. Ben Davis from the Victorian branch of the Australian Workers Union joins me now. Ben, great to see you. What does this mean to low-income workers here in Victoria?
It's great news for low-income earners and for those who are paid according to award rates of pay. It's $1 an hour increase, and that's always welcome.
Yeah, is this enough, though, to keep up with the rising costs of living? Because it's just above the rate of inflation now, but that rate is expected to keep on increasing.
Yeah, and that's problematic, but at least it means that they'll be close to keeping pace, if not keeping pace. It depends on what happens with inflation over the next 6 months.
The Australian Chamber of Commerce and Industry says this will be a significant impost for small businesses, that the money has to come from somewhere. Can businesses afford this?
Well, the Chamber say that every year when the national wage decision's handed down, look, some businesses may well struggle. Most will just absorb it and keep going. It is, after all, only $1 an hour, and it's for about a quarter of the workforce who are dependent on awards and the minimum rate of pay. It's for our lowest paid workers.
Yeah. How important is $40 a week to many of your members?
For those that are paid according to awards and not enterprise agreements, very important. It means that they can put food on the table. It means that they'll be able to put petrol in their car or afford their power bills. I think that this will come as a great relief to them.
Should there be more rises? Should it be linked, for example, to the inflation, rate of inflation?
Well, I think it should be linked to the rate of inflation, because we're talking about the lowest paid workers in the country. These are people who are dependent on the minimum legal wage and on awards. So, yes, I've always thought that should be linked to inflation. Why should those who can least afford it suffer before anybody else?
Ben Davis, thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it this afternoon.
Thanks, Mike. Cheers.
To news just in, and the local share market lost further ground today and is now down more than 7% in the past 5 days alone, as Network Finance editor Gemma Acton reports it's now hurting our super returns.
Good afternoon. After all of yesterday's share market drama, today was a quieter day, but usually after you see a very steep sell-off, the next day you're looking to see a recovery of sorts. The ASX 200 could not deliver that today. It was another down day, with the index closing down around 1.3%. Some of the hardest hit stocks yesterday were under pressure again today, including Afterpay owner Block and online jobs platform Seek. However, mining giant Fortescue, which lost 6% yesterday, has now clawed back some of those losses. Although all else equal, rising interest rates help banks to grow their profits, it has been a tough week for financial services companies. They've fallen around 12% since last week's RBA rate rise. That's on fears stretched consumers will struggle to pay off their debts, and the property market is expected to take a hit.
If you're positioned with the miners and the oil and gas companies, you're doing very well, and I think they'll continue to do well into this recovery.
Super experts say after the recent bumpy ride for markets, any positive returns for the average super fund gained earlier in the year could be washed out by June 30th.
We've seen a lot of ups and downs during the financial year, and it looks like we're ending in negative territory if the current trend continues.
That follows a return of close to 18% last year and an annual average return of around 7% since the super system was first launched.
Former Senator Darren Hinch has announced he'll run in November's state election. The Justice Party founder plans to target the upper house. Darren Hinch joins us now. Thank you very much for your time, Darren. You were unsuccessful in the past federal election. Why do you want to run in this state election?
Well, during the federal election, which we lost, I covered 30,000 kilometres in the Justice bus around Victoria, and I wasn't surprised that the major parties only got 30% primary vote, because out there in Victoria, people are fed up. They're sick of the major parties, and I've got two members of the upper house already in Stuart Grimley and Tanya Maxwell, but I think, well, if I can add a third voice, we can really push some buckets.
You were just talking about people being fed up with the major parties. The Teal candidates obviously played a significant role in that federal election. Do you think we're going to see that repeated here in Victoria when we go to the polls, and could that benefit a party like yours?
Well, I think it will benefit us as well. I don't know yet what the Teal candidates will do. I'm sure some will run. But in the federal election, they ran virtually only in the lower house. And I think that's probably what they'll do here in Victoria. And so I'm not that worried about them, but it will maybe affect the result of the election. You're a very brave person to predict how it's going to turn out.
Darren, you've been to jail, you've been a TV and radio star, of course you've been in Parliament. I think it's fair to say you've had a colourful life. What would you bring to Victorian politics?
Well, I think a lot of state issues, there's things like bad magistrates, weak magistrates. There should be some sort of panel in Victoria where a bad magistrate can be tossed out and have a panel of experts say, this person keeps making terrible decisions. I mean, look at this thing, it was jail, not bail. If something like the Burke Street massacre happened some even more years ago, you might say, oh, I wonder if that person was on bail. If it happens tomorrow, you'd say, I bet that person was on bail. And that's the difference. And so aged care, I mean, we finally got a Royal Commission into aged care, but the way that major parties have handled aged care has not been good, and I think we should push harder for better quality. When I was in the Senate, I tried to get ratios for nurses and carers in aged care, and none of the major parties wanted to know a word about it, a thing about it. I mean, look at this one, Mike. The average spend on food for people in aged care, according to the Royal Commission, was $6.07 a day. When I was in jail, I got $10 a day and all the free litres of milk that I wanted. Now, something's wrong, something's rotten when that is the case.
Darren Hinch, appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mike.
The Duke and Duchess of Cambridge are said to be leaving London's Kensington Palace and relocating their young family to the Windsor estate. It's a cottage not far from the Queen and her castle, with no need for staff or renovations. It's also closer to Kate's parents in rural Berkshire. Coming up, the latest on the energy crisis. We'll talk to an expert about what it means for your home tonight. Plus, Amber Heard refuses to back down following her court loss. And we'll reveal Australia's best pie and what's different about this year's winner. I'm from Docklands. Back in just a moment. Victorians are being warned to brace for potential power shortfalls as soon as tonight, with generators being encouraged to release more supply onto the market. The Grattan Institute's Climate Change and Energy Deputy Program Director, Alison Reeve, joins us now. Alison, great to see you. There's equal parts concern and confusion out there, so we're hoping you can explain what on earth is happening and can we turn our power on tonight?
Well, the good news, Mike, is that we can turn our power on tonight. What's happened is that the Australian Energy Market Operator has announced that it's suspending the spot market. Now, what that means is that instead of individual generators bidding in energy into the market to sell it, the market operator will just be directing them to run. And what that gives us as consumers a lot more surety that the lights are going to stay on because there is someone who is telling the generators that they have to run. But it also means we don't know how long this is going to last for. And it means that there is a lot more uncertainty about over winter how we are going to manage the market.
This seems like an entirely huge mess. What does it mean for Victorian households beyond tonight? You mentioned that this could continue for some time to come. It
could continue for some time to come. What has been causing this in part is that there are a lot of coal units that are out of the market because they need repairs or maintenance. And some of those are waiting on parts to come from overseas, which are caught up in global supply chains and so on. What we can hope for is that this period of suspending the market allows the market operator to get much more of a sense of when those units will come back online. Also to sort out procurement of gas for the gas generators as well and get some more transparency about what is going on there. It could still be a bit of a bumpy ride over winter, but hopefully this period of a suspended market will provide a little bit of breathing space where we can actually get to a bit of a reset and get more of a functioning market back. That means things go back to normal.
It's dreadful weather out there right now. What can Victorians do to conserve energy? I know they're not keen, for example, to turn down their heating.
I'm certainly not keen to turn my heating down at all. And I'd actually say, look, people shouldn't do things that to conserve energy that will affect their health or affect their comfort. There are things, though, that people can do around the house. One of the things you can do, for example, with your heating is make sure you're not heating spaces that you're not using. So if you've got a spare room or a second lounge room or something that you're not using, then shut off the heating in those rooms and that will save you some energy.
Alison Reeve, thanks for helping explain it all to us. Really appreciate your time.
Thanks a lot.
Amber Heard is refusing to back down over her bitter defeat in court. She's blaming a social media onslaught for swaying the verdict.
The jury is not immune to that.
You think the jury saw it?
How could they not? To my dying day, will stand by every word of my testimony.
The actress says she's paying the price for speaking the truth. A mushroom pie made in Ocean Grove has won the annual award for Australia's best pie. It contains 3 types of mushroom: cheddar, parmesan, herbs, and a truffle filling wrapped in a golden flaky pastry. It's the first time a vegetarian pie has won the prize, and it's back-to-back for Rolling Pin Bakery's Nathan Williams, who won last year with a surf and turf. For more, Nathan Williams from Rolling Pin Pies and Cakes joins me live. Nathan, firstly to you, Congratulations. We can't taste it yet, so you'll have to describe it to us. But I'm a bit of a traditionalist. I got to confess, I love the meat pies. Why mushrooms?
Well, to be honest, initially at conception, it was really about getting truffle into a pie. And to be honest, I don't really like mushrooms, so that was a surprise to me. It just seemed to be that thing in the end when I was trialling that paired really well with the truffle, and the feedback was really great, so I stuck with it.
I grew up on pies whose favourite saying was that they were the pies that thrilled but never killed. So I guess pies have come a long way. Are you shaking things up with the non-traditional types of pies?
Oh, we've for a long time now been entering national competitions, and the judges every year, they're really looking for bakeries to be a bit more creative. So that's really what we're trying to do.
First-time vegetarian pie too. You really are shaking things up.
That's right. I mean, we are a nation of meat lovers, but things are definitely changing. There's more vegetarians, there's more vegans. Things are changing, so we have to roll with the times.
Surf and turf last year. What can we expect to pop up on your menu next year?
Oh, I'm trialling at the moment a mixed grill, so going completely the other direction and sort of trying to get as many meats in there as I can. So that's sort of something that we're playing around with at the moment.
Now you're talking. Thank you, Nathan. Congratulations to you and well done with your pies.
Thank you so much.
Okay. There are concerns about shoppers' privacy with revelations major retailers are using facial recognition technology. Jane Bunn has your weather forecast next. And Peter Mitchell has the latest from the newsroom. Stay with us. Three of Australia's major retailers are under fire after it was revealed facial recognition technology is being used in their stores. As Evan Batten explains, the majority of shoppers weren't even aware it was happening.
Anyone who's walked into a major retailer and wondered how they're using their security camera vision that they're recording of you will be alarmed to learn that a number of major retailers are now admitting to using facial recognition software. Bunnings and Kmart are among them, who say at this stage it's only for a trial. Choice asked 25 major retailers if they were using facial recognition technology after a tip-off by one of its members. They admitted to scanning the facial features of every customer who walks into the store and cross-checking it against a list of known individuals who may have been suspected of shoplifting or causing trouble in other ways.
That does raise a lot of questions about the accuracy of this technology. We don't know how accurate it is.
And Choice is ultimately asking for an investigation to be carried out by the Office of the Australian Information Commissioner to see if any breaches have occurred. Bunnings, in response, has said it's disappointed by Choice's research here, calling it an inaccurate characterisation of Bunnings' use of facial recognition technology. It's only used in selected stores, it says, and only to keep team members and customers safe. Kmart says much the same sort of thing. It stores the data only for 30 days or so. The Australia Institute says it should all stop now until legal protections can be put in place.
ACME is offering an antidote to Melbourne's winter darkness. Light is the subject of a new exhibition of 70 works from Britain's Tate galleries. Turner's masterpiece Deluge is the main draw card, along with a more modern take on the topic called Stardust Particle.
The exhibition starts with painters and painterly works, and we end with more contemporary works where light becomes the actual material itself.
The exhibition runs until November. Let's take a quick look at Melbourne's roads right now.
Good afternoon, it's Hayley Steele in the THC traffic chopper over the city, where we had a look at the Westgate Freeway. It is fairly congested at the moment, but it is finally starting to ease off. We had a breakdown out of the Burnley Tunnel, also had a bus that broke down on the city side of the Domain Tunnel. Police and speed cameras are everywhere to keep you safe. If you exceed the speed limit, chances are you will be caught. Anywhere, anytime, drive safely for everyone. TAC.
Jane Bunn joins us now, and Jane, boy, the wind has a bite today, doesn't it?
Mike, the air is cold and the wind really has an impact. At the airport, it felt like -4 degrees at a time this morning. The city has now endured its 17th day in a row below 15 degrees. Our top is only 12.9. Showers are passing through, the winds are gusty, but they're not quite strong enough to do damage. It is a northerly wind, but it certainly isn't what you'd normally expect with that direction, because Queensland and the Northern Territory also felt the chill, so a wind from there isn't warm anymore. So far today, the airport has only reached 11, but Avalon and Geelong have risen to 15. Showers are crossing Victoria, local thunderstorms in the northwest. There are big differences in the temperature. The central north and northeast stuck under low cloud with light rain falling. A few spots haven't even reached double figures, whereas the northwest has certainly started to thaw out. Mildura reached a top of 19 degrees, their highest temperature in 2.5 weeks at 16 in Horsham. That's the top, and 17 through the northwest, whereas Bendigo only 9 today. Our winds turn northerly ahead of a low pressure system that is set to slowly trek across Tasmania, and then it dissipates. High pressure takes over after one more minor surge comes up from the south on Friday. So as that low slowly crosses Tasmania, we have showers here in Victoria. They'll clear from the northwest while they increase over central parts and the southeast. Only the southeast feels that last little bit of this long stretch of weather systems. That's on Friday into Saturday. There are showers through there with wintry hail. But as that high comes in, and this time it's likely to settle in for a few days in a row. We are likely to see lots of sunshine, the winds become quite light, and it isn't as chilly as it has been. Around the nation tomorrow, Brisbane heading for 24, Sydney 20, Hobart dry, while Canberra and Adelaide showers passing through. Perth a top of 22. To Victoria, showers across the south and east of the state. They are widespread in central parts and across Gippsland as well, and the ranges. Snow only on the highest peaks. It is dry, however, in the northwest under areas of lingering cloud. It is cool to cold out there. The wind in the south isn't as chilly as it has been today. In Melbourne, it could reach 15. That's for the first time in 18 days. but it's not pleasant. We've got lots of showers passing through, so you'll definitely want the umbrella for tomorrow, a lot more than what we've seen today.
Need to mow the lawn at some stage. OK, thanks, Jane. Now let's check in with Peter Mitchell, who's getting ready for 7 News at 6.
Thanks, Mike. Coming up at 6, we'll have the latest on the extreme measures being taken to secure Victoria's power supply and prevent blackouts this week. We'll have the details live. Also, a big payday for 2 million minimum wage workers, what it means for the economy and cost of living pressures. The supermarkets promising no price rises on some grocery essentials. The investments company fined nearly $2 million for ripping off customers who were dead. A special report on mogul mothers with booming businesses. Tips on how to become a mumpreneur. And Tim Watson first with the teams for AFL Round 14. All that and more coming up at 6, Mike.
OK, thanks, Mitch. And that's all from Melbourne's afternoon news. Thanks for joining us from the 7 News team. Enjoy the rest of your evening.